helicopters to transport almost 2 brigades worth of troops
to the hilt through the covert operation.
Today we have to realize this fact that in the cybersecurity space also psychological.
He was the divisional commander when the Indians gave a bloody nose to the Chinese in Nathula. He was the divisional commander when the Indian army conducted the very successful counter-insurgency campaign against the Mizo rebels. And here he was again in Bangladesh commanding 4 corps. And he actually, General Manekshaw, had served together several times. And therefore Manekshaw had full faith in Sagat Singh that he would deliver. So I'm not going to go into operations as such in the East. Suffice to say that by 6th or 7th of December, the Pakistan Air Force had been completely knocked off and it was on the ground. The Indian Air Force had achieved complete air superiority. The Indian Navy had blockaded Chittagong completely. And you had Sagat Singh's 4 corps that advanced very rapidly into East Pakistan but suddenly found themselves on the banks of the river Meghna. The river Brahmaputra, when it flows through Bangladesh, is called the river Meghna, and the Ganges, the river Ganga, when it flows through Bangladesh, is known as the river Padma. So now all the 3 divisions of General Sagat Singh found themselves on the banks of the river Meghna, and the retreating Pakistan army was blowing up all the bridges. And so therefore the biggest dilemma that Sagat Singh had was that now what do I do? How do I move large forces across the river Meghna when the enemy is retreating and blowing up all the bridges? And that is when, for the first time in the history of the Indian Armed Forces, the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force conducted what is known as a strategy of vertical envelopment. Now, vertical envelopment is nothing, carrying out operations by helicopters in which you transport troops and equipment across obstacles and place them in a position that surprises the enemy. So that is exactly what happened that Sagat Singh did. Sagat Singh and Group Captain Chandan Singh used a small lot of helicopters, just about 15 helicopters, to transport almost 2 brigades worth of troops across the river Meghna in such a manner that the garrison in Dhaka thought that a whole division had crossed the river Meghna. So the first move on the chessboard for causing a psychological collapse in Dhaka was made by Lieutenant General Sagat Singh and Group Captain Chandan Singh as they maneuvered across a river that was actually practically uncrossable. I remember when I interviewed one of the generals who was a captain, who was a major at that time and was crossing the river Meghna in his tank. He says that you could not see. Now, December means that the river Meghna was full after the monsoon, and you cannot see the other side of the river Meghna when you're standing on one bank. So wide was it. So you could either only cross it by helicopter, or you could cross it with amphibious tanks. And that is what the Indian Army did. At the same time, what happened was that to the north of Dhaka, all of you must have heard of the Tangel airdrop. A little over a battalion of paratroopers were dropped north of Dhaka. And the news came into Dhaka that one whole brigade has been dropped. So actually what happened was, not too many Pakistani troops, it is not that Pakistani troops died by the thousands. It is a whole chunk of Pakistani military capability was intact. But they were so psychologically demoralized by hearing reports of the Indian Army closing in from all directions onto Dhaka. Leaflets were dropped by the Indian Army. Field Marshal Manekshaw sent a message to General Niazi, your game is up, it's time for you to surrender. The Indian Air Force was constantly bombing targets inside East Pakistan. On the 14th, they even bombed the governor's house in Dhaka, wherein Governor Malik was chairing a meeting. It is said that he ran into Governor Malik put his hands on his head and ran inside a tunnel and sent a message to the UN headquarters saying that, look, tell the Indians that we want to surrender. And this is something that none other than Mark Tully and other foreign reporters reported. So gradually what happened is that there was so much of psychological pressure that was built up by the Indian military. And of course, on the other side, you had the INS Vikrant that was about 50 to 60 kilometers, off the Chittagong harbour, constantly bombing the Chittagong harbour, Chittagong airfield, Khulna, Chalna, and all other places, and putting a lot of pressure. So the question comes to mind is, what is it that caused the Pakistan Army to surrender in 1971 with 93,000 able-bodied troops, paramilitary forces, equipment, guns and everything? It was psychological pressure and the absence of a will to fight because of poor operational leadership. The Pakistan army, as the pressure was being built by the Indians, did not have the requisite leadership capacity to fight back. And that is what made them surrender. And the last thing that I want to talk to you about before I open myself to a question and answers is that did we do everything right during 1971? Of course not. There are many people, or there are many field commanders, and there are many people whom I spoke to said that, there was also a huge element of luck. And that is what history tells you, that you cannot only be a brave general. You have to be a brave and you have to be a lucky general. And I think that holds good for every rung of strategic leadership. You cannot be a successful politician until you have some element of luck. And therefore, in Bangladesh, during the lightning campaign, luck was on the side of several Indian commanders. And they fully capitalized on that luck with their professional competence and their brilliance to drive home a decisive victory. For example, there are many times when the Navy or the Air Force first hit a target and the other service followed a few hours later. But this is not to say that the two had discussed as to we will follow each other. It just happened in time and space. For example, in the Western Theatre, the Indian Air Force bombed the Karachi complex in the morning. The Navy did not know about it. The Navy followed it up in the evening with that spectacular missile boat strike. So actually, it was a joint operation. It created tremendous amount of effort. But was it a result of excellent operational planning? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But I think the biggest negative fallout from the 1971 war is something that has not been spoken about enough. And that is the fact that despite her tremendous political leadership and acumen prior to and during the 1971 conflict, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, for reasons best known to her and her immediate policy advisors, did not drive a hard bargain with Prime Minister Bhutto to seek a quid pro quo kind of a result for the return of 93,000 prisoners. Now, I will not speculate on what she could have forced the Pakistanis to do, but the bottom line is that we didn't get anything in return for those 93,000. And I have a very firm opinion on why that happened. And I think that happened because after the war was over, when it was time for negotiations, I think the Indian armed forces were completely left out of the negotiating process. So you had Lieutenant General Bhagat, who did a study and drew the broad contours of the line of control as we see it today, starting from NJ 9842, moving westwards. But in none of my research have I found evidence that when Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and the members of the PMO, including PN Haksar and PN Dhar and other members, went to the negotiating table, as a historian, I ask one question: why were there no senior military leadership as part of that negotiating process? Because then they would have been able to advise the Prime Minister to say that, look, these gains have been hard fought. We need to extract quid pro quo for the return of the 93,000 prisoners. So, most of it good, lots of successes, lots of lessons, but there are also lessons in hardball negotiations that we lost out on after the 1970s. I think with that I will close, and I would be glad to take questions.
Thank you, sir. It was really refreshed our memory. Sir, my first question to you, sir. You said that we were the great people who managed the perception well during the PSYOPs, the General Sekhar Sinha, and what has gone wrong? Why we are not able to manage in the current scenario, sir? The perception, where we are going wrong? Why the PSYOPs things which probably be used to the hilt through the covert operation, the raw you have mentioned in your book, and another question which you, as a historian, you should be able to tell us, sir, that and tell the country that why we are not able to give the dues to those people, those mattered, General Singh and General Sekhar Singh, all these people, they contributed a lot. Of course, all the three chiefs who had a point to prove and they were raring to go. The synergy was the best. Why the synergy lapse take place? These are the three questions, sir. One by one, you can give that.
So let me answer your last question first.
Yes, sir.
That that as organizations grow, as organizations get more powerful, there is a tendency to start operating in individual silos. And unless there is apex guidance, unless there is firm strategic policy guidance, the chances of the instruments of statecraft operating individually is very, very strong. And I think one of the reasons why, I have this, I liken all our instruments of statecraft. I have talked about it in the past, saying that our instruments of statecraft are actually diplomacy, governance, political structures, technology structures, and the military. And I think after 1971, what has happened is that for a long, long time, all these elements of statecraft have started functioning in parallel. It's like traveling on parallel railway tracks without converging at a common destination at some point in the distance. So one of the main reasons why all elements of Indian statecraft have not managed to pull together optimally since then is because of this reason. And I think I talked about the strategy bridge. I think the strategy bridge after 1971 has, instead of strengthening, has actually weakened quite a bit. And I think one of the attempts of this ongoing transformation in India's armed forces is because the political establishment of the day is seized of this problem, wants to do something about it and create more synergy between all elements of statecraft, which is why the term you hear more and more these days is whole of government. So I think we are moving towards a whole of government approach, and I hope we see some tangible success in the next couple of years. Second question you asked is about covert capabilities. One of the reasons why our covert capability has suffered is because if you recollect that when Prime Minister when Inder Kumar Gujral was the Prime Minister of India for a short period of time, he actually dismantled a lot of our covert networks in our neighborhood. And I think we haven't recovered adequately from that dismantling of covert networks. And therefore, covert networks are extremely important to undermine and weaken an adversary. So while we are constantly weakened by covert networks, the absence, we are unable to, or our ability to weaken adversaries through covert operations is fairly limited because of limited capacity. And the last question you asked me is that why people like General Sagat Singh and the others did not get their due. Now some people are very strong personalities. Some people, are sidelined because of various other issues other than professional competence. So this is something that happens in all services, in all countries. You have brilliant operational commanders who don't go on to become chiefs for various reasons. So that is my set of answers to your question.
Very, very pointedly you have said, sir. My request will be that at least that this is really revealing that one of the ex-Prime Minister dismantled all the covert network. I think this should come in the media, sir. You keep writing in the Hindu and you keep writing. So all such things, because today's generation is gaping, they don't have the information, and much information, strategic information is not there. And what I have seen, the young generation, they have that thirst. They understand and they want somehow India to come up. It is coming up. And in the void of the strategic discourses, correct perspective, because going through your book, one can always see, and you have hinted very in a subtle manner, that there were historians past who have put the narrative in a manner which was probably pleasing to some one ideology or maybe to some liberalization, whatever you can name it. The naming is one thing. But there has been a biased approach in the history.
Yeah.
You being a historian, requirement is, sir, a non-partisan history, a factual thing to be served to our young generation, who at least can take up the thing. And I would always put a request, sir, from CKS India, you can give your views. We will be glad to take up this matter, sir.
Yep.
Any matter of strategic thing which you can think. I will request Mr. Vinit Goenka. He is head of the Railway ITS also, and sir, with his approach, I think we should at least serve this nation by bringing the lapses, because the lessons you have, of course, in your book hinted many a place. But I would request, sir, that this should come. Any other glaring mistakes, sir, or lessons which you think we should learn? Of course, you have spoken on the theaterization, and your views are very well known. But anything, sir, the last comment from on this aspect?
No, I think I don't have too much more to add, other than the fact that I would like to build on this fact that the current millennial generation. I have spoken to several of them, several people who've read my book, and they've all said that there is a need to write more objective history. There is a need to chronicle military history in a bipartisan manner, and also so I would urge all those who are interested in contemporary military history, Indian military history, do read my two books from HarperCollins, and you will find a lot of gaps in your understanding of contemporary, not only contemporary Indian military history, but also you would find several gaps which exist in your understanding of contemporary Indian political history would also get resolved, or would also get cleared when you read those two books. Also, for those of you interested in the 1971 war and in military history in easier form, I will be coming out with a 25 series podcast very soon, which is called Wars and Warriors, and I will be tracking the Indian Armed Forces chronologically from independence to current times at various positions. So I think from my end, I'm doing whatever I can to spread the message that India's armed forces have been a critical element of Indian democracy and must be seen so. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. I'll request Madam Sumitra Goenka to please propose vote of thanks, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. So first of all, I wish to thank AVM Dr. Arjun Subramaniam for the excellent address today. One very important thing that we understood here was psychological warfare. I think that is one point which is a big takeaway, that many wars are not just won on the basis of only bombing somebody or getting into a destruction of property and people or lives of people, but psychological warfare is very important. And somewhere today we have to realize this fact that in the cybersecurity space also psychological warfare makes a very important impact. So this is one of the important lessons which other than what Dr. AVM Sinha Saab has mentioned, I think psychological warfare is a big takeaway, and we have to as a country work more on psychological warfare side, I think so. I also wish to thank AVM Sinha sir for organizing and coordinating the event, and taking all the people along for this event. And he has been instrumental in the earlier series also, the 5-part series earlier, and even now he is having a 5-part series for which he has distinguished speakers, and the first one was today by Dr. AVM Dr. Arjun Subramaniam. So it was a brilliant session, sir. We thank you for your presence, and we hope to see you further also with us on our forum. I also wish to thank Lieutenant General VM Patil, Lieutenant General Shekatkar sir, who have been our guiding forces. Deepa Prakash, Dr. Deepa Prakash, who unfortunately is not with us today. Dr. Nagaratna, who was supposed to actually deliver the vote of thanks. And of course, Shri Vinod Goenka ji, who is the Secretary of CKS. I also wish to thank the entire team of CKS who have been working on the lines of data sovereignty and knowledge sovereignty, and also we have been sensitizing on certain important aspects on national security, like today's session. History is a very important part of documentation, and I think the countries have to understand the importance of history. Today, sir has given a very good outlook about how history can be, distorted, or how we need to know our exact history proper way. I also thank YM app and the team YM who is supporting us today. Though there are a few challenges which we have faced, but I think we will overcome that in the next session. I also wish to thank Wing Commander Shetty, retired, and GC Anil Mardikar, who joined us, but I think he could not join us back. And also Air Marshal Soman wanted to join us, but due to some issues, he couldn't join us right now. That's the message I have got. So I want to thank all of them for the support. And last but not the least, I want to thank all the people who have joined us and who are watching us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and other forums where this is currently getting relayed live. And this entire session we will be circulating to a wider audience through our different social media channels and communication channels. And we would encourage everybody to put up their views and suggestions, and they can also write to us on our social media handles. And if you want any specific sessions, you can let us know accordingly. So I wish to thank all of you for your support.